My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Tuesday, March 4th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine today, high 53. Tonight and overnight, partly cloudy, low 46. And then Wednesday, clouds in the morning, rain and some heavy-duty winds in the afternoon, the high going to be 55. If you're walking out the door with us right now, 23 and clear in Riverhead out on Long Island, 26 and partly cloudy in Bordentown over in New Jersey, and it's 33 and partly cloudy right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
A senior citizen shoved down a flight of subway stairs, speaks out. Should we be worried about the measles cases popping up here? A Bronx daycare worker sentenced for the death of a child. Democrats welcome Andrew Cuomo into the race with insults and slurs. And Jon Bon Jovi celebrates a major milestone in New Jersey. 5:01, let's get into it. The big story overnight, tariffs put in place at midnight last night, just 5 hours ago. 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada went into effect at midnight from the Trump White House. Everybody trying to figure out what this means. One of them is a Florida economist. His name is Dr. Ken Johnson. He thinks this may be a negotiation tactic for President Trump to get a trade alliance and better border control from both countries, something he got from them before the threat of the trade tariff last time.
If, on the other hand, these are not just simply negotiating tactics and these things go in for the long term, 6 months, 12 months, and forward from there, then we're probably looking at significantly higher prices in both automobiles and homes.
At midnight, Canada laid down their own tariffs against the U.S. Ontario's premier says Canada is set to retaliate with these tariffs on the U.S.
I will stop shipments going into the U.S. for nickel. It will shut down manufacturing because 50% of the nickel you use is coming out of Ontario.
Doug Ford says these tariffs, he's the Canadian premier, says this will be an absolute disaster for both the U.S. and Canada. And he says it's just a bad idea.
It's going to go downhill faster than the American bobsled team. It's going to be an absolute disaster for both countries. We're your largest trading partner.
Canada supplies electricity to parts of the U.S. He said that could go downhill.
If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I will shut down the electricity going down to the U.S.
Those tariffs, again, beginning at midnight. Warren Buffett breaking his silence on President Trump's trade policies. He called the tariffs on Canada and Mexico, these are his words, an act of war. The legendary investor, of course, behind Berkshire Hathaway, which has large businesses in insurance, railroads, manufacturing, energy, and retail, says this is not good. Experts have warned that tariffs could reheat inflation, particularly impacting the auto industry, sending prices for new cars, they say, soaring as much as $12,000. Of course, a wait and see. These tariffs just went in place at 5 hours and 3 minutes ago. Out on Long Island, about a dozen middle school students there recovering after eating marijuana gummies. A spokesman for William Floyd Middle School in Mauritius says there was a student there who passed out the edibles to about 12 other students yesterday morning, and then some of them started to get sick. Parents, of course, upset to hear this is happening at their middle school.
A little concerning because you don't know where they got it from and what's mixed in there.
Some of the kids don't even know what they're taking. You know, people are making them at home, buying them from the store, places that aren't regulated. It's very scary.
Yeah, most of the kids ages 13, 14 sent to the hospital after becoming sick, while one teen was picked up by a parent. The good news is they're all okay. They were probably high in a way they didn't want to be, or maybe they didn't even know they were marijuana gummies. We don't know that part yet, but they were edible THC gummies. 12 students involved. Now the parents are waiting to see if anybody will be punished.
Some of these kids have never experienced, and their friends aren't truthful to them either and tell them to try this, and before you know it, we're in the situation where people are sick.
Yeah, there was a panic moment at the school yesterday. School officials say the middle school was placed into a hold-in place. We're trying to figure out what the heck was going on when all these kids got sick. They were quickly able to put the story together. So far, Suffolk County Police say they plan to place any criminal charges against the kids who were involved, but they will continue their investigation to figure out exactly who was handing out all these gummies. Overnight, Dolly Parton taking to social media to announce the passing of her husband of almost 60 years, Carl.
Parton announced in a post on Instagram that her husband, Carl Dean, had died Monday in Nashville at the age of 82. The pair met in 1964 and were married in 1966, with Dean staying mostly out of the spotlight. Parton's statement added that the two spent many wonderful years together and that words can't do justice to the love that we shared for over 60 years. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Carl was this interesting guy. He never attended public events with Dolly. And the singer only shared just a handful of photos of him over the years. There was a period of time I can remember, and I want to say it was when I was a kid, where the paparazzis were just obsessed with getting a picture of Carl because he was so just not out there. That eventually died down as time moved on. But the couple met at the Wishy Washy Laundromat in Nashville when Dolly was just 18 and had just moved to Nashville to what would be just a superstar career. But the two then staying together. They did not detail how he passed away. And Dolly saying that the family, asking for privacy, of course, during this difficult time, and that the funeral will be much like the way Carl lived his life, extremely private. Only immediate family members will be invited. Pope Francis has taken another turn. Medical analyst Vin Gupta says his condition has definitely gotten worse.
Acute respiratory insufficiency, essentially for the lay public, that means that he's having trouble breathing, and it's happening quickly.
Francis has been in the hospital for more than 2 weeks due to bronchitis, pneumonia.
For many people, that would mean we would have to put somebody on a ventilator. In his case, we're managing it non-invasively. What does that mean? For those that might be familiar with the CPAP mask at home for sleep apnea.
Yes, so Gupta speaking about his experience with the illness.
It's similar, slightly different, but it's what we do in the ICU to prevent, as an intermediate step, to prevent having to go all the way to a ventilator.
Yes, so this is what the Vatican was telling us late yesterday, that his prognosis remains reserved. Those are the words they use. They say Pope Francis is alert, suffering 2 episodes of acute respiratory failure on Monday. Doctors were forced to intervene to clear mucus from the Pope's lungs. An update from the Holy See said yesterday the 88-year-old pontiff resumed use of oxygen mask, a ventilator to assist his breathing. None of that sounds good, but they do say he remains alert, focused, and cooperative. This is now the 3rd serious downturn since the 88-year-old pontiff was admitted to the hospital, which is now 19 days ago, with pneumonia. WABC News Time 509, Mayor Adams taking some jabs at former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who, of course, announced over the weekend he's running for mayor against Adams. Adams rattling off some February crime stats that show another steep decline in crime in the city. And then he made fun of Cuomo, who just said that the city is in crisis.
Somebody said the city's in crisis? I wonder, who was that guy?
Adams then went on to say that the city has to be saved from Cuomo while pointing out that crime is much lower than it was when Cuomo was governor. So he says that's a silly notion. Cuomo says New York City needs to be saved, but Adams says it needs to be saved from him, from Cuomo, and then compared stats now to when Cuomo was governor.
Look at the crime stats in 2020 and what you saw in transit crime, what you saw alone. We're down 50% from transit crime in 2020.
Reporters, of course, asking the mayor what they thought of Cuomo's record as governor. He said he'll save that all for the campaign trail. It seemed as though there was a resolution that had been reached in the New York State prison guard strike, but now it's not really clear what's going on.
Last week, a settlement was reached addressing many of the guards' concerns, reports said, including dangerous conditions, staff shortages, forced overtime. But the deal required striking workers to be back on the job by Saturday or risk being fired. So, termination letters are going out to guards who didn't show. It's a wildcat strike, meaning the union didn't approve it. Plus, under New York law, state employees can't strike. Governor Hochul noting guards who have been AWOL for 11 consecutive shifts are being fired, losing their health benefits, and their pensions could be impacted too. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 511. Let's go down to Texas, where that measles outbreak continues to grow.
We currently, over the weekend, have had more confirmed cases. And so our case count is now at 158.
Dr. Jennifer Shufford, she heads the Texas State Health Services, says they're surging resources into West Texas, Lubbock. That's the epicenter of this outbreak, mostly in the Mennonite community. The vaccination rate is the lowest in the state there.
We know of other outbreaks that have happened in the last 10 years across the United States, have lasted months.
And this is the fear, is that this is just the beginning of what will be a much larger outbreak. She hopes that doesn't happen.
And so that this could go on for a while until we are able to fully contain it.
Yeah, so it's 158 cases, mostly among unvaccinated kids. She says the vaccine is still available to anybody who wants it. And she's also pushing back against some ideas and rumors that have gone viral on the internet in these portions of Texas, that it was illegal immigrants who brought measles to Lubbock.
We don't have an answer yet for how the measles entered the specific community in West Texas.
Yeah, so she suspects that it may be an American who traveled overseas and brought it back to that Mennonite community.
There's a measles outbreak in an Amish community in Minnesota that came from individuals going and doing a missionary trip in Asia. It's probably around some type of travel, but we're not going to have an answer anytime soon.
WABC News Time 512. Nearly 5,000 acres have burned in South Carolina as 175 fires reported across the state over the last 48 hours. Russell Holbright, he's the forest management chief for the South Carolina Forestry Commission. He says the combination of dry brush and windy weather is making it for dangerous fire conditions.
It's very erratic. You saw it, the flames were low, and all of a sudden they jumped up, right? So wind changes can do that, and this kind of a fuel type, as we call it. So it can be a little scary.
South Carolina's governor declared a state of emergency over the weekend. In North Carolina, a fire in the Blue Ridge Mountains, 40 miles from Asheville, has scorched more than 500 acres now. It was just 30% contained as of last night. Correspondent Emily Ikeda is in the area.
Towers of smoke from wildfires can be seen for miles in North Carolina as well, as the region hopes the most dangerous fire conditions are under control. In South Carolina, first responders battling more than 170 wildfires, as the governor here declared a state of emergency.
514, meteorologists across the nation warning that the recent budget cuts to the National Weather Service and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration could people at risk. Of course, the Trump White House making these changes, saying these agencies are bloated and they're getting rid of extra personnel. But these meteorologists pushing back that it could be dangerous.
We need to know, when the rain's coming, how strong the winds are. Those are like critical pieces of information so that emergency responders have good data so they can work and help save lives.
Eugene Cordero, he's with the Department of Meteorology and Climate at San Jose University, says the cuts are undermining science.
It is very conceivable that there will not be enough forecasters to keep these offices continually running 24/7. And what will happen to the forecast in mornings is of great concern to us.
In an effort to save money, the White House laid off about 600 employees from these agencies. That's what's raised the concern. And there were protesters gathered at the Golden Gate National Recreation Area in San Francisco to oppose budget cuts to the National Park Service. White House says that's bloated as well, laid off people, many holding signs saying protect our parks there yesterday.
We need to stop this nonsense. We need to hire back the people that were fired, not only National Park Service, but every federal government employee that's lost their job in the past 6 weeks. They need to be rehired.
All right, in a moment, we're going to tell you J.D. Vance's view of that WWE smackdown at the White House with Zelensky, Trump, and J.D. Vance. We'll get into that story in just a moment. But first, 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Good morning, Justin Ellick.
Good morning, Noam Layden. Start here with the NHL at the Garden. Well, Will Cooley and Will Morgan scored in the first period. Igor Shesterkin stopped 21 shots for his fourth shutout of the season, and the Rangers beat the crosstown rival Islanders 4-0. JT Miller and Artemi Panarin each had a goal and an assist for the Rangers, who've won 4 of 5 and got their second shutout in 2 nights. They had 22 blocked shots to help keep the Islanders off the board. Ilya Sorokin finished with 22 saves for the Isles, who have lost 6 of 8. And remain 5 points out of a playoff spot. The Rangers are 7-3-0 in their last 10 games to pull into a tie with Detroit for the second wild card in the Eastern Conference. The Red Wings hold the tiebreaker with 1 game in hand. Coming up next for both squads, the Islanders host the league best Winnipeg tonight at 7:30 p.m. and the Rangers host Alex Ovechkin and Washington come Wednesday night. The Devils return to the ice tonight against the Stars, set for an 8 p.m. puck drop from Dallas. No local action was had last night in the NBA, but both the Knicks and the Nets will return to action tonight at 7:30 p.m. The Knicks will welcome in the Golden State Warriors into the Garden before the Nets tip off with the Spurs in San Antonio at 8:30. The Knicks are at a 7-3 clip over their last 10, while the Nets sit at 4-6 over that span. On the collegiate hardwood, St. John's continued its turnaround in its second season under coach Rick Pitino, moving up a spot in this week's poll to number 6 in the nation, its highest ranking since reaching number 5 in the 1990-91 season. The Red Storm, 26-4 overall, 17-2 in the Big East, have not been to the NCAA tournament since 2019, but are essentially a lock to end the drought after clinching their first Big East regular season title in 40 years with Saturday's 71-61 win over Seton Hall. And out of the MLB and spring training down in Tampa, Yankees starting pitcher Luis Gil has been diagnosed with a high-grade lat strain in his right shoulder and will be out at least a couple of months. Manager Aaron Boone did not disclose a specific timeline, but he said before yesterday's spring training game against Pittsburgh that Gil won't throw for at least 6 weeks, after which he would need to fully build back up again. Gil's injury likely means Marcus Stroman, who entered camp seemingly as the odd man out in the rotation, but also said he had no interest in going to the bullpen, will open the season as the team's 5th starter. Gil, of course, the reigning American League Rookie of the Year, experienced shoulder tightness during a bullpen session on Friday and underwent an MRI over the weekend that revealed the strain, though Boone said he still needs to undergo further examination. The hope is that the 26-year-old would return at some point in the first half, but that is unknown at the moment. It's a big loss there for the Yankees' very good starting rotation. That is your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:20. Let's go down to D.C. President Trump says the U.S. stupidly gave away $350 billion to Ukraine. He was at the White House yesterday, says former President Biden gave away the funds to Ukraine so they could fight Russia and got nothing in return.
We could have rebuilt our entire U.S. Navy with $350 billion. Think of it, $350 billion.
And the president says despite the tough rhetoric between himself and President Zelensky on Friday, their rare earth mineral deal, he says it's still a go.
And what we're doing is getting that all back and a lot more than that.
Yeah, so he says he just wants to get his money back from Ukraine. Trump says the U.S. has done its part.
Through thick and thin, we've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there. That's the border.
And the president says Zelensky must come to the bargaining table again with Putin if he truly wants to achieve peace. President Trump says deals need to be fair. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance talking about that dust-up at the White House on Friday with Zelensky, Trump, and himself. He says he was trying to diffuse the situation during Friday's confrontational meeting. He was on Fox News last night.
Something about my answer just really set Zelensky off. So then he came at me.
So you're blaming yourself.
Then I went back at him.
Vice President Vance says when things started to really heat up, he pushed to take the discussion behind closed doors. But he says the president wanted the American people to see it for himself. Vance says there was a lack of respect and a sense of entitlement from Zelensky, and that's why he said he asked for that thank you from Zelensky.
What I tried to do originally was actually try to diffuse the situation a little bit, because I'm like, we're having this meeting. Obviously, there are 100 television cameras here. Let's try to have this conversation in private.
WABC News Time 522. President Trump says a high-profile chip maker going to invest about $100 billion in the U.S.
The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America.
The investment by a group called the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company will mostly go into building 5 manufacturing facilities. They'll all be in Arizona. Trump says the semiconductor chips will play a pivotal role in the nation's economic future.
This $100 billion in new investment will go into building 5 cutting-edge fabrication facilities in the great state that we just discussed, Arizona, and will create thousands of jobs, many thousands of jobs.
And Trump says Taiwan continues to invest heavily in the U.S.
In total, today's announcement brings Taiwan semiconductor investments to about $165 billion. They've started already.
We go from Arizona down to Texas. Texas taking a cue from the Trump White House with its own DOGE committee. Last week we told you Florida Governor Ron DeSantis began his own DOGE committee to root out what he thought was waste in Florida's government. Same thing going to happen with the Republican Party, which is in control in Texas.
It could be this committee is very successful, but then again, if the Speaker's office doesn't like it and wants to maintain the status quo, it can be just a big hype machine.
Yeah, I guess there's an argument in Texas over who should run this committee. Democrats say they should have more power. 523 out in California. The fast food minimum wage law, according to at least a new study that came out, has not led to the type of job losses that some had predicted. Fast food workers in California now, on average, make about $20 an hour. This study done at Cal Berkeley.
Minimum wage increase up to $20 did not reduce employment, and it increased prices, but only by 1.5%.
That's Professor Michael Reich, who says that wages for fast food employees have gone up nearly 10% since that law went into effect last year. And while there's been an increase in automation with some of these fast food places, he argues that was going to happen with or without the law. His research now looking into whether that will keep workers from hopping from one job to another if you give them a $20 an hour wage.
The number of fast food restaurants has been growing faster in California than in the rest of the U.S. since the policy was adopted. An increase of about $1.50 is really pretty small, even though when you say $20, it sounds like a big amount.
Yeah, he's arguing $20 may not be enough. 524 last night, Senate Democrats blocking a Republican effort to ban federally funded schools from allowing transgender athletes to play women's sports. In a party line vote last night, Democrats filibustered the measure that was introduced by Republican Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, who spoke out earlier in the day.
We're getting to a point now where women and girls sports are getting ready to be extinct, because already in states across this country we have high school teams that are made up of totally boys participating against girls. So it's very serious.
Banning transgender participation in sports was, of course, a political hot talking point for many Republicans during the 2024 campaign. And also last night, Linda McMahon officially became in charge of the Department of Education.
The yeas are 51, the nays are 45. The nomination is confirmed.
The Senate voted along party lines yesterday after Democrats criticized McMahon for her lack of education experience and support for President Trump's plans to close the department. McMahon, of course, a former professional wrestling performer who ran the league with her husband, who left the WWE in 2009 for politics. Overseas, Israel facing some sharp criticism for its actions following the expiration of the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. Correspondent Matt Bradley is in Tel Aviv.
The truce in the Gaza Strip is reaching a critical impasse. The Israelis said yesterday that they were cutting off aid deliveries into the Gaza Strip, which had started again during that 6-week phase one of that truce.
Now, that move comes after Hamas had rejected Israel's proposal to extend the initial phase of the ceasefire agreement to cover the holidays that are coming up. Ramadan got underway on Friday, Passover's in a couple weeks, and they wanted to get past that and have some more exchange of hostages. But apparently that is not going to work out the way Israel wanted it to.
If neither side agrees to some sort of extension in the next couple of days, or if they don't see a negotiation from phase one to phase two, and it looks as though we could see a return to war in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, so Israel and Hamas have not agreed on this next step, and that was the big stumbling block lots of people involved in the negotiation process saw. They knew there was going to be problems here.
The Israelis have proposed to Hamas an extension of Phase 1, which saw the swapping of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails for Israeli hostages in the Gaza Strip. Hamas has rejected that, and that is why we're starting to see this very tentative, very tenuous treaty starting to fray.
Yeah, and those talks in Cairo between Hamas, Israel, and some outsiders, that has all fallen apart, at least as of this morning.
Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5:35. Good morning. It is Tuesday, March 4th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine today. Just a beautiful day on the way. The high is going to be 53. Tonight and overnight, partly cloudy, low 46. And then Wednesday, it's going to be kind of messy. Clouds in the morning, heavy-duty winds and rain in the afternoon, the high going to be 55. But if you're walking out the door with us right now, it is 24 and clear in Riverhead out on Long Island. It is 27 and partly cloudy in Bordentown over in New Jersey. And it's 33 and partly cloudy right outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour in Jackson Heights, Queens, where a 72-year-old woman who was kicked from behind as she was walking down a staircase at a subway station over the weekend, speaking out last night to Eyewitness News about her fears of riding the subway ever again. This distraught woman, her name is Amanda Sanchez, she said she did not know the man who attacked her and shoved her to the ground, but she says she's got some pains and aches from that moment.
Yo no lo conozco, no sé ni quién es. I don't know who he is. Lo que pasa que la parte de acá arriba, todo esto me duele. Everything here hurts.
Yeah, Sanchez says she hit her head on the ground. Her whole left side of her face and hips are sore. She was on her way home over the weekend from the Bronx, where she works as a home attendant. This was about 11 p.m. on Saturday. She says, I did not recognize the guy. He came out of nowhere to kick me and shove me to the ground.
Yo no pude subir las escaleras. I couldn't even get to the escalators because I had a panic attack.
Yeah, so she says she got off the E-train at the Roosevelt Avenue 74th Street station, was transferring to the 7 train, taking steps and walking on the mezzanine when this creep, this jerk, came out of nowhere, kicked her from behind. She ended up in the hospital. Good news is she's okay, but she says, you know what? I don't know if I can get on a subway again. She tried to yesterday.
Se de cuenta que también ha de tener mamá. I'm sure he has a mother as well. He wouldn't want something like that to happen to his mom.
Yeah, well, maybe this jerk would. Other subway riders giving their reaction.
Oh, man, that's crazy. Honestly, there are a lot of unstable people still roaming around. That's what you see all the time. And the police department, they just stay, neutral. It's not like they're stopping and preventing it. They post-reactive.
And the good news is there's really clear pictures of this putz. You can check them out at WABCRadio.com. WABC News Time 5:40. It's been more than a year since 1-year-old Nicholas Dominici died from ingesting fentanyl at a Bronx daycare center. Remember this story? Well, yesterday, a federal judge sentenced Gray Mendez, one of the daycare's owners, to 45 years behind bars. Now, right before he handed out his sentence, the Mendez apologized to the parents in Spanish, said, my only mistake was entrusting the people who were close to me. There was a drug operation being run out of her daycare center, and prosecutors say she knew it was there but did nothing to protect the kids from the drugs that were being hidden there. Her attorney argued that she was not the boss of the drug operation, but the judge said, no, I'm going to give you 45 years behind bars. The DEA our agent in charge of New York, he watched on as the sentence was handed down, and he says that's about right.
This is a resounding victory for law enforcement and for all of these families that are fighting this fentanyl crisis.
Yeah, after that 1-year-old died from fentanyl poisoning, they found 3-kilo presses, more than 2 pounds of fentanyl at this daycare center, a trap door with a secret compartment containing more than 5 kilograms of fentanyl and other drugs. Prosecutors argued that Mendez should have done more to try to save the kids, but instead lied to the first responders who raced the scene when this 1-year-old wasn't breathing. And she could have used Narcan. They had Narcan at the daycare center, but apparently she did not use it.
They were storing the drugs right underneath the play mats in the daycare, using different utensils to mix up the drugs, but also to make their lunches. This is completely irresponsible and reckless, and this person deserves the 45 years that they got today.
In fact, Nicholas's mom, the 1-year-old who died, says she's sorry that the woman didn't get life behind prison, but 45 years is a long time.
You should never bring your kids to the daycare, drop them off, and then receive that phone call. That's just a tragedy that no parent should ever have to face.
Yeah, you're right about that. There is a story out of Long Island, not as horrendous as that one, but some parents say they're pulling their kids out of tutor time in Lindenhurst, Long Island, following the alleged assault of an 18-month-old child in their care. 26-year-old Megan Marchena was arrested on Friday for allegedly pushing that 18-month-old's face into a cot at the daycare center. The toddler had to go to the hospital, get stitches. Now people who send their kids to tutor time are not sending them back, including this mom whose kid Joey was there. She said, no, I'm not sending my 1-year-old back.
I was completely disgusted. He's not just my child. He's my everything.
Tutor time in Lindenhurst has 7 violations found during inspections between 2022 and 2024. They range from the staff not using acceptable techniques for problem solving to walls having painted chipped paint on them. Another mom who had sent her kids to tutor time until last Friday also pulled him out as well.
I just don't trust them right now. I can't send him back. He's nonverbal. He's 19 months and he can't speak up for himself. And if I'm not watching, I don't know what's happening.
Now, Tutor Time did put out a statement yesterday. They say the safety and well-being of children in their care is their highest priority. City Hall and the NYPD says subway crime is down in the Big Apple.
The New York City Police Department stats say we just experienced the lowest number of shootings during January and February since 1995, and overall crime was down 14.5%, marking the third straight month of double-digit decreases. You'll likely find many subway riders who find it hard to believe, but the NYPD says crime on trains like murder, robbery, and grand larceny fell 15% compared to February of 2024. Cops credit the deployment of officers to hotspots like trains and platforms, including during the overnight hours. That started at the end of January. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 5:44. Of course, Governor Cuomo jumping into the race for mayor over the weekend, and the Democrats in the race pushing back against his candidacy. One of them, City Comptroller Brad Lander, who says that Cuomo used state funding to pay for legal bills stemming from those accusations of sexual harassment while he was governor.
Before New York gives him $1 more of taxpayer funds to run for mayor, Andrew Cuomo should return the $28 million that he is using to abuse power.
Now, Brad Lander hanging out with this organization. I've never heard of them before, but they're called the Sexual Harassment Working Group, and they say it's unfair that the women who accused Cuomo of sexual harassment did not have their bills paid for, their attorney bills, but Governor Cuomo did.
That found the ex-governor to be a serial sexual harasser, that they have to use their own money while the ex-governor can use taxpayer dollars.
Now, you remember at the time, before Cuomo was pushed out of office, the DOJ probe found that Cuomo created a sexually hostile work environment, which he has denied, by the way. And in a moment, we're going to hear from regular New Yorkers who are weighing in. Will they vote for Cuomo? Is he the Democrat that they want to see in City Hall? We'll get into that story in just a moment. But first, 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk, and here's Justin Ellick.
Thank you, Noam Layden. Start here with the NHL at the Garden, where Will Cooley and Will Borgen scored in the first period. Igor Shesterkin stopped 21 shots for his fourth shutout of the season, and the Rangers beat the crosstown rival Islanders 4-0. JT Miller and Artemi Panarin each had a goal and an assist for the Rangers, who won 4 of 5 and got their second shutout in 2 nights. They had 22 blocked shots to help keep the Isles off the board. Ilya Sorokin finished with 22 saves for the Islanders, who have lost 6 of 8 and remain 5 points out of a playoff spot. The Rangers are 7-3-0 in their last 10 to pull into a tie with Detroit for the second wild card in the Eastern Conference. The Red Wings hold that tiebreaker with 1 game in hand. Coming up next for both squads, the Islanders host league best Winnipeg tonight at 7:30, and the Rangers host Alex Ovechkin in Washington come Wednesday night. The Devils return to the ice tonight against the Stars, set for an 8 p.m. puck drop from Dallas. No local action was had last night in the NBA, but both the Knicks and the Nets will return to action tonight at 7:30. The Knicks will welcome in the Golden State Warriors into the Garden before the Nets tip off at the Spurs in San Antonio at 8:30. Knicks are 7-3 over their last 10, while the Nets are 4-6. On the collegiate hardwood, St. John's continued its turnaround in its second season under coach Rick Pitino, moving up a spot in this week's poll to number 6 in the country, its highest ranking since reaching number 5 in the 1990-91 season. The Reds stormed 26-4 overall, 17-2 in the Big East, have not been to the NCAA tournament since 2019, but are essentially a lock to end the drought after clinching their first Big East regular season title in 40 years with Saturday's win over Seton Hall. And out of MLB and spring training down in Tampa, Yankees starting pitcher Luis Gil has been diagnosed with a high-grade lat strain in his right shoulder and will be out at least a couple of months. Manager Aaron Boone did not disclose a specific timeline, but he said before yesterday's spring training game against Pittsburgh that Gil won't throw for at least 6 weeks, after which he would need to fully build back up again. Gil's injury likely means that Marcus Stroman, who is going to be the odd man out, in that rotation, and also said he had no interest in going to the bullpen. He'll open the season as the team's 5th starter. Gil, of course, the reigning American League Rookie of the Year, experienced shoulder tightness during a bullpen session on Friday, underwent some MRIs over the weekend that revealed the strain, and Boone says he still needs to undergo further examination, and the hope is the 26-year-old will return at some point in the first half, but that is unknown at the moment. Big loss there for the starting rotation going into opening day for the Yankees. That is your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:50. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo starting to roll out his proposals as he runs for mayor. The Democrat says he's launching his mayoral campaign to restore what he calls effective leadership to a city in crisis. So do New Yorkers think the city is in crisis? Put a microphone out in Midtown.
Crisis? I would say yes, in a way. It's not really safe. It's gotten better, but it's not there yet where we want to be.
Oh, I think it is, yes. There's a lot of things going on right now. I mean, the streets are not safe. The economy, immigration.
Cuomo's laid out some key proposals to make housing more affordable, guarantee universal 3K childcare options along with affordable transportation. So what do New Yorkers think of that?
Well, it's up and down.
Crime is up. Everything is, look at it, dirty.
I mean, it could be better. The subways are horrendous. The tolls that we're paying just to get to work is horrendous. And crime is horrendous in the city.
So what do those New Yorkers think about a Cuomo comeback? Will they get on the Cuomo train?
Well, I think he has experience. I think he could do it. I think it's a good idea. I'm all for it.
I don't think he did a bad job last time he was in office, but let him run and see what he has.
I think he did a pretty job the first time, didn't he? Another career politician.
It's just another headache.
Yeah, so a whole bunch of different opinions there. 5:51, the Trump administration is threatening to withhold millions of dollars from Columbia University, citing anti-Semitism at the New York City Ivy League University. Monday night, the Education Department, Health and Human Services, and the GSA announced a review of more than $5 billion in federal grant commitments to Columbia. And they say a federal task force on anti-Semitism will consider stop work orders on more than $51 million in current federal contracts. Columbia, of course, was home to the most visible anti-Israel protests anywhere last spring. The letter that we have now taking a look at did not specify any specific acts the department might consider anti-Semitic, but they are reviewing all the money that goes to Columbia from the federal government. As the measles outbreak continues to spread in Texas, there's been 2 confirmed cases now here in the city. The city Department of Health has not exactly said where the cases were reported or if they involve kids. One child, of course, has already died in Texas. More than 150 people there have the measles. Last week, there were 3 cases of the contagious virus in Bergen County over in New Jersey. And doctors, again, as they have been since this outbreak has begun in Texas and now apparently has moved to New Jersey and New York, are saying, hey, it's not too late to get the vaccine.
You can die from it. You can become deaf, blind, brain damage, have post-measles encephalitis. It's a horrible, horrible illness. The first vaccine is 93% effective, and when you get the second booster, it's 97% effective in preventing measles.
Now, the New York City Department of Health says there were 14 cases of measles in all in 2024, so we have 3 now in 2025. New Yorkers don't seem to be too worried about it.
I'm not too concerned. One thing is vaccinated. 2, I think the government is doing all that they can to prevent the disease from spreading.
No, I feel safe being vaccinated.
Yeah, so when you're talking about 2 cases, do you remember this? In 2019, there was a big measles outbreak here in the city. In fact, it was about 605 reported cases. So 2 cases, that's not a whole lot. WABC News Time, 5:53, New York State, expanding its You're Hired campaign to recruit workers who were laid off by the federal government as the Trump White House tries to trim the workforce, what they call a bloated workforce. Governor Hochul says digital billboards are on display now in Washington, D.C., and at the Moynihan train station, of course, 34th Street, to fill open jobs in the public sector in New York. They say, why not pick off some of these federal workers who have experience?
In the state of New York, we have 7,000 public sector job openings. We're looking for qualified, experienced candidates across a wide variety of fields. I need technologists, I need engineers, I need attorneys, healthcare workers, educators, public policy experts, and so many more.
State Department of Labor going to hold several info sessions to help these impacted federal workers through the application process. She's ready to hire.
None of this seems to matter to Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Not at all. For them, it's just fodder for this cheap second-rate reality show. You're fired. It's fun for them to say that.
Of course, Trump White House would push back against that, saying they're just trimming a bloated workforce. Hochul, though, has a simple message for these federal workers who are out of work now.
New York does want you. New York needs you. Come work in the greatest state in the nation. We won't denigrate you. We'll treat you with dignity and respect that you deserve. Because in New York, we know it's not the demagogues and the technocrats who make America great. It's public servants.
5:55. Let's go over to Patterson, New Jersey. I was waiting for you to chime in. Illegal dumping
I'll give you money to never play her again.
Well, I can't do that. She's the governor of New York, so.
So what?
Well,
she's an asshole.
She's governor until she's not.
Okay.
I mean, Republicans tried to defeat her, and they were unable to. So.
I understand.
Yeah.
2026, she's going to lose.
All right, well, hopefully the Republicans will come up with a better candidate.
Mike Lawler, who's joining me this morning, Bruce Blakeman, they're all going to be better.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see if she even runs. We don't know that
she's going to run. Yeah. She may not even beat Richie Torres in her own primary.
Well, look, it could look much like the Eric Adams primary, right? Very similar. He may not win his either.
No, because she'll still be the favorite. It'll be closer, but the favorite. Eric Adams is a huge underdog. Cuomo is a prohibitive favorite.
When's he coming on, by the way?
Either late this week or next week.
Wow, this is a very serious negotiation. Each time it seems like he's maybe almost afraid to come on.
Well, to be completely transparent, I spoke to both the former governor and my dear friend Janice Dean yesterday.
All right.
So there's some stuff going on behind the scenes, which I may or may not make you privy to.
Wait, so are you going to match up Janice Dean with Cuomo, and Cuomo's going to apologize to Janice Dean for her in-laws that were killed in a nursing home during COVID?
I never said apologize. I never said anything. I am talking to both parties.
Fascinating. Could they both come on together? Could she actually endorse Cuomo's campaign?
I don't think she would ever go that far.
I didn't think so either.
She's not a big fan of Adams either, just so you know.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a problem with Adams. I mean, him calling out Cuomo would be like O.J. Simpson calling Robert Blake a murderer.
All right, I'm going to end with this story. Jon Bon Jovi, just about the nicest guy you ever want to meet. He has owned this restaurant. It is called a restaurant owned by the New Jersey native and music icon. It is marking a major milestone. The restaurant has served its 200,000th meal between its Red Bank and Toms River location. Now, the restaurant uses this unique pay-it-forward model where those who are unable to pay for their meal volunteer their time to serve other people, which is a great idea. So now they have served 200,000 meals. It's pretty incredible.
This model has now been proven time and time again for well over a decade. This restaurant, this flagship here in Red Bank, sat 33 people. Think about that. 200,000 meals served in a restaurant that sat 33 people.
Yeah, amazing job done by Jon Bon Jovi, and the name of the restaurant just came to my mind. It's JBJ Soul Kitchen. And what's kind of cool about them, what they've done now, is they've expanded, and they have one restaurant that's near the Rutgers University Newark campus and one near New Jersey City University in Jersey City. And why are they opening them near universities? Because they found that college students are going hungry because after paying tuition, they don't have much money left over for food. So they've set up these same same idea. The restaurant uses that unique pay-it-forward model where if you're unable to pay for your meal, you just have to volunteer your time at the restaurant. Good job done by Jon Bon Jovi.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/real ID or visit your local DMV.